this can only mean one thing. It's a maintenance day. We get to change our fuel filter. All right, so we're here in Washington State in a beautiful, beautiful forest in a really nice campground. But regardless of where I am, you always got to be thinking, what's the next maintenance item I need to do on my Sprinter van? Well, today is one that I've put off for a while because I usually like to do these really quickly and it's just hard to take the time to film it. But I made a promise to you guys that I would make a video about how to change the fuel filter. Now this is really easy to do, especially after you've done it 4 or 5 times, it becomes second nature. But there are a few little things that I'm gonna show you that's gonna make it a lot easier. So here in Northern Washington in a remote campground, we're gonna change our fuel filter. Let's do this. Okay, so the first thing you wanna do is obviously pop your hood. The second thing that makes it really a lot easier to do is if you can find something to stand on, because we are gonna be working down in the engine compartment and these vans are high. And so having a little something to stand on is nice. And in this case, Kathy and I are gonna move this picnic table from this campground over here to use it to stand on. Don't worry, when we're done, we're gonna put it right back where it came from. You think you can do this?
I don't know, it might take a few tries, it's really heavy.
Ready?
That was heavy.
That was heavy. I love these Pacific Northwest picnic tables. They're made out of thick, solid wood. They're not the cheap metal ones that you find in the rest of the country. These are beautiful, but they are very heavy if you need to move one. All right, next step is I got to get a few tools. This right here is my Atlas 45 tool roll. This has basically, not quite all my tools, but it has most of my hand tools in here. And I've got everything I need to do something like this. Now this is a pretty simple change. This is the fuel filter here. I got this one off of Amazon, and these can cost you anywhere from, I don't know, the most expensive I've seen is close to $200. And the most inexpensive is like these Amazon ones. I think I got this for $27. Now these, as far as I can tell, they aren't stamped on them the same way that the OEM ones are. But other than that, they seem identical. I've had a lot of these and they've always worked good. And I've also had the really expensive ones. But the thing you want to look for is that there's 4 ports. There's 2 ports for your fuel to go in and out of. There's a port here that plugs into the computer side of things because there's a sensor in here. And then this is, I think this is a little water or oxygen sensor. I'm not sure on that, but it has this funny little port off to the side. They'll have these little caps on them, and this is what you're looking for, at least for my VS30 2019 Sprinter. If you have another model different than mine, they can come in a variety of arrangements. My older Sprinters didn't have this sensor. They just had 2 places for the fuel to come in, fuel to go out. And so make sure you're getting the right one for your van. Just because this one fits my van doesn't mean the same one's gonna fit your van. In the description below, I'm gonna put the part number for this particular filter for my van. And like I said, check for your own van. A source I really like to use to get parts, especially like this, is one, Amazon has some really good deals, but also Auto House AZ. It's a import shop that does a lot of parts for import vehicles out of Arizona. It's called Auto House AZ. I'll put a link to their website below. And in there, you've got a place where you can enter your make, model, year, and then boom, it'll pop up with the parts that you need. And it'll tell you on the website if this part that you're thinking of fits your vehicle or not. So that's a really good way to verify that these parts will fit. And I do that all the time. All right, let's get going on it. I've got a few more specifics to show you that'll make the job easier, but I'll show you as we need them in this video. All right, here we go. We're gonna change the fuel filter in my 2019 VS30 Mercedes-Benz 4x4 Sprinter van. That's a mouthful. Let's get into it. All right, there's a few tools I know I'm gonna need right off the bat. All right, one thing we're gonna need is a big flathead screwdriver. This is handy. Another thing we're gonna need right here. These are a special type of pliers that are made for removing fuel line clamps. Our vans have a special clamp on there, and I shouldn't say special. A lot of different manufacturers use a similar clamp, and these pliers have a flat side and a notch side, and this will go around the clamp that's on the fuel line, and makes it super easy to pop these off. I did this for years without these tools, using a little flathead screwdriver to pop it loose, and then just pliers to put it back together. But once I found out about these, and I bought these on Amazon again, I think these were 20 bucks or so. I'll put a link down below for these as well. But this makes that process so much easier and faster. So you'll want to get a set of these. All right. Now this could be the weirdest thing in my whole tool bag. Let's see here, I'll pop this out. We've all seen these before. This is a dental pick. You can get different types of picks in, Harbor Freight and different places sells them. But I got this particular one in a medical supply store in Peru. And the dental pick is really great for what you're gonna see in a minute, for removing one of these little plastic clips. It allows you to get in there and really precisely pull it off, because they're incredibly fiddly, and you can easily end up dropping one into your engine compartment. And if you do so, you are gonna be the luckiest man on earth if you're able to find it again. So this pick makes this a lot easier, a lot less frustrating, and also you have a better chance of not losing that little clip. Now, my fuel filter comes with this little clip right here. See that little black bit? And you can get this pick under there and pop it right out of there. It's a little horseshoe clip, and it holds this, this little line on. They're incredibly fiddly. I have lost a few over the years. I do carry spares of this. If you go to Mercedes, you can buy spares. And I've got a little Ziploc baggie full of, I don't know, I've got 3 or 4 of them. But this is one thing that can really shut you down if you break it or lose it. So be incredibly careful with this little clip. But the dental tool makes it a lot easier to pull this out. If you're in a pinch, I have done this with a tiny little punch with a point. I've done this with a little piece of wire to get under it and pull it loose. But I found this dental tool makes it the most easy. All right, come on in. Let's, first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna remove the airbox. This seems kind of daunting, and this is a big, huge part, but we're gonna remove this. And luckily, it's pretty simple to do. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna loosen this hose clamp right here. And this is where the air comes into the engine. So we're gonna pop that loose. Then we're gonna come over here on this side, and we've got this is our remote to be able to jump start our van. This is the little positive port that you would use this, and the nipple that's over here under the hood on the far right side. That's where you're gonna attach the negative to, is that port. So if you're jump starting your van, this is how you access your battery, because our batteries are underneath the footwell inside of the cabin. But this has a little clip on the bottom of it, and I just push that in as I lift it up, and it snaps right off. You can see the clip right there once I've removed it. See this? You're feeling for that, and that just basically meshes up here on the bottom and holds it down. But once I pull that off, I can just set this off to the side. Now I do have 2 cables coming into ports here. You can remove these if you want, and it does make it a little easier to get in here and work. But I think today I'm gonna leave these on. I normally do leave them on because I'm always scared I'm gonna break this little clip here and end up creating a problem for myself. So today I'm gonna leave these, and once we get this loose, you'll see I'm just gonna flip it off to the side, and then it's still out of the way. The next thing we have is down here. This is where the cold air comes in. And you can see there's just a little hole here with a little piece of plastic. And if you just push that in, it goes in, and that will pop out, especially once we remove the airbox. So to remove this, there's 2 little nipples that come down into these little bushings, and we're just gonna pop those off. And the easiest way I've found to do this is to get a good hold on it and just pull straight up. Boom. It makes kind of a clicking sound. It sounds kind of horrible, but that's how you get it off. Now, once this is off, and I've got a little play here in this cold air, I can then pop that off as well. That piece comes out completely if you want. I usually just kind of leave it sitting right here for the time being. Okay, so now it's loose and we can pull this out. Now remember, we've got these two cables attached over here, but I can swing this around. And the thing that this sits on is these forks. There's two forks here. I'm gonna call them forks. And they sit on these rubber bushings that are on this mount here. And that's what holds the backside of the airbox. Okay, so now I'm gonna take the airbox and I'm just gonna kind of flip it upside down and I'm gonna set it here off to the side. That way I don't have to unhook these couple of wires here. Next step, we're gonna then remove here the other side of this air hose. To do that, you once again use your big screwdriver and there's another hose clamp. I'm just gonna literally loosen this just 3 or 4 turns and then this will just pop right off. Now there's also a sensor attached to this right here and we wanna just get this out of the way. We don't really need to totally remove it. We just want it to give us a little more room to get in here to the fuel filter. So I'm just gonna kind of rotate it around like that and get it out of the way. Now I've got some paper towels here. I'm gonna wad them up and I'm gonna plug where my turbo goes in. I don't wanna get any grit or grime or anything else in the turbo because that could be bad for it. So I'm gonna use this to just kind of plug it up and keep it safe. So I'm just gonna fill that hole where we just took it off with some paper towels. Now what we're trying to get to is right here. This is the fuel filter and it's kind of buried down in the engine compartment. You do have this hose here and you can pull this gently out of the way and give yourself a little more clearance to get in there. We are gonna then remove this hose with our little dental pick. We're gonna remove this sensor, which has a plug. We're gonna remove the 2 fuel lines using our special fuel line pliers. And then right here on the back, there is a bolt that's an Allen key, a hex key, and we're gonna loosen that a little bit and then the whole filter will slide out. Let's do that. Okay, now this is really hard for you guys to see, especially with my big fat hands in here. But I've got an Allen key. I'm gonna loosen this one bolt that holds on the fuel filter right there. And you don't have to turn it a lot, like 4 or 5 turns maybe, and it's loose enough that then it'll slide right out. But for the video with my hands in there, I don't think you're gonna be able to see anything, so I just wanted to point that out. Okay, the next step, and it doesn't really matter what order you do these in, but you need to remove this clip. It's this clip right here. It's the only clip that goes on the top of the fuel filter. And you push this little tab down as you pull out on it. Sometimes this can be a little sticky. Sometimes a little WD-40 or something on there will help loosen it up. But if it's got a lot of dirt and grime, it can be hard to get off. But just work it and just don't push too hard because this is plastic and you don't want to snap this clip off. But this is that little 5-pin sensor that's on top of the fuel filter. So I'm just going to set this off to the side and then I'm going to start working on these other 3. This is the most fiddly part of this whole process, and this is where I like to use this dental tool. There is a little clip, I'm going to point to it, the dental tool, right on the top of this sensor. And you want to get kind of underneath it and then pull it straight out. And if this doesn't feel right, don't pull too hard because this is a very fragile little clip, and especially if you don't have a spare one, this is something you don't want to lose or break. So let's see here. I'm going to get in here. I don't know if you can be able to see this, but I've got my tool underneath it. And I'm just lifting it up, and at the same time, I'm capturing it and trying to keep from dropping it. So it looks like a little horseshoe. I'm kind of scared to do it over the engine compartment. I'm going to set it down here on the table, and we'll get a close-up. It's a little horseshoe, and I am just literally hooking this instrument underneath it and just pulling it straight out. And this works really good because this is the hardest part of the whole thing. Now I am always really careful about this. I'm going to set it over here off to the side where hopefully I don't bump it and lose it and toss it in the bushes. All right, now we can just pull this little tube off. And you want to be careful with this again because it is, most of this is just plastic, but with a little finagling, it'll come off. Boom, like so. And you can see a little bit of fuel just dripped out of there. That's normal. All right. Next step, is using my specialty pliers here. I'm going to then pop the fuel clamps off the fuel line. Okay, now this is still a little fidgety. You got to get it on there just right. And you want this notch in the pliers to go under the clips and pop it loose. So there's one side puts it on and one side takes it off. And there it is. It's very not dramatic, but it popped right off. Then I'm going to do the same thing on this side. You heard that click that time. This side takes it off, this side will put it on, and you literally just flip it one way or the other. Pretty obvious once you get one of these pliers and you look at these clamps, you'll see what I mean. Okay, these clamps right here, what we just undid, they're the two fuel lines. One fuel line goes in, one fuel line goes out. All right, the next step is we got to remove these fuel lines, and they can be on there surprisingly well, especially if you've never done this before. They feel really tight. I usually take a flathead screwdriver and use it just to gently pry it off the nipple. And it seems like you get this loose just a little bit there, and see that one came right off. And then this one is going to take a little more finagling. And I'm just working back and forth on both sides. Put a little pressure. Sometimes I can just get in here with my fingers and wiggle it back and forth until it wiggles loose. There it goes. Pop. Now it's off. Now you want to make sure when you're messing with this here that you don't drop these hose clamps off the end. I leave them attached, but I am just gonna be careful not to lose them. Okay, that did it. Now the fuel filter is completely unattached. Like I said, these hoses are just floating here. I'm gonna just slide those off to the side. And then you can grab onto whatever you need to. I usually grab this sensor here, and it's just a matter of wiggling it back and forth a little bit, and it'll walk its way out. Now this is gonna be full of diesel. So when you pull this out, don't turn it sideways or upside down, because it will spill diesel all over you. But there it is. Looks a lot like the one I showed you a minute ago that we're gonna put in to replace it. So I'm gonna carefully take this, and I'm just gonna keep it upright, and I'm just gonna set it out off to the side so I don't spill any of that diesel. Now it's the same thing, we just do it in reverse and put this whole thing back together. Now it comes with these caps on here that just keeps junk from getting into the filter during transit. These are trash once you install it. But this is really cool because these cheap Amazon filters come with an extra piece that the more expensive Mercedes filters don't come with. And it is this little horseshoe clip, the one that I was so careful to remove. They actually give you one that's holding the cap on. So when I remove this, I'm gonna keep one of the two, and that's gonna go into my spare parts baggie that I keep for doing fuel filter changes. And then if I lose one of these down the road or break it, I've got spares. Okay, now I'm gonna use this as an example to show you what's going on under the hood, because I'm sure you couldn't see that with my big hands in there. So I've got my hook, and then I'm just gonna get under here with my pick, and I'm gonna lift this out. Now, this is it. That is the little piece that we don't want to drop. But it's really cool that these cheap filters come with a spare, because I bought some of these at the Mercedes-Benz parts counter. I think they were $2.50 each for these things. It could be more than that even, but it's good to have a couple of these extra. So if your filter doesn't come with one, it's a good idea to go to the Mercedes dealer, go to the parts desk, and ask them for this little horseshoe clip that goes on the fuel filter. I'm sure they'll know exactly what we're talking about, because people break and lose these all the time. Now you can just remove this little cap. Like the others, this is just trash at this point. You don't need it. That line is gonna go onto here, and then we're gonna reattach that horseshoe clip as what holds it on. It goes in this little groove in this nipple. And then the plug will plug right into here. You can see there's 5 pins in there. And then this little bit on the top is what it hooks onto and what secures it. And then we have the 2 fuel lines. One's bigger than the other. That helps you from getting the wrong end on the wrong side. But basically we saw what it looks like as we pulled it apart. The hoses are basically in still the same orientation. So when we slide this back in, we're going to tighten it down, put everything back together. So let's do that now. All right, we got our brand new fuel filter. So now that you guys have a view in here, this is the bolt that is the clamp that goes around the whole fuel filter. All right, let's put her back in. I'm gonna come in here on the top and just make sure all the hoses and stuff are out of the way. And just like before, we're gonna have to wiggle this a little to get it in. All right, let's put it back in just like we took it out. This thing is kind of buried in here, but it will go. Okay, it's in. Now I just gotta like finagle it all the way down. There we go. As I'm doing this, I'm paying attention to these fuel lines and making sure they don't get trapped under there, and that you want the filter to basically be oriented like it was before. So I'm gonna give it a little twist, and that looks about right there. All right, so the next step is I'm gonna go ahead and pop these fuel lines on their appropriate nipple. I'm not gonna intentionally tighten this down until I get everything on, in case I need to rotate it a little bit for something to line up. I've made that mistake before. All right, so as you can see here, the fuel lines are on. I'm sliding this one clamp right where it needs to be. It goes almost to the end of the line, but not quite all the way. Now we've got this sensor. I'm gonna plug that on. Makes a nice little click. Now, so to do this part, I've also learned the hard way that I take my gloves off. You want maximum sensitivity here to put this in, because it makes it easier to drop if you have the gloves on. Okay, so we're gonna want this horseshoe oriented with there's a little tab on the top of it there. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a little tab you'll see on the top of the curve, and we're gonna have that positioned towards the fuel filter. You wanna get it on both sides, and then when it goes in, yep, it'll just make a positive little click. And then that is in just like it should be. Next step is to replace this clip, and that just is a lot simpler than the last one. It just goes right on here. I'm gonna actually rotate this just a little to make this clip go on a little better. That's why I didn't tighten it down yet. Boom. And now that's on. All we have to do now is tighten down this last bolt, but I'm gonna put on my gloves to do that to keep my hands clean. I love these Milwaukee nitrile gloves. They're, boy, my friend Tom Martin told me about these, and they're $4, less than $5 at Home Depot. And they are so rugged, so tough, and it gives me the best dexterity I've seen out of any of the mechanic style gloves. I've been using these through the Grand Canyon on my raft trip this last winter, and I've been using them for everything I do on the van since, and they're still holding up fine. I think they're just starting to wear through a little bit right there, but for $5, easy to go get another pair. Okay, now I've got my Allen key. I'm gonna tighten down the filter like you saw in the back. There's another one of those that's hard to see, but that is what I'm doing. Just tightening up this one clamp. Next step is we got to reattach our fuel line hose clamps, and we're going to use this specialty tool once again. Like I said, this thing is handy. All right, so now instead of removing them, we're going to flip them the other way so that this is on the outside and this is on the clamp side. I don't know if that makes sense to describe it that way, but you will know it because it only goes on one way and it goes off one way. And if you've got it right, it's super easy. And if you've got it wrong, you'll struggle. All right, so there they are. They're attached. Okay, I'm gonna double check everything. I'm gonna make sure this clip is on good on the sensor. Feels solid. Hose clamps look good. I've got my horseshoe clip in. And now I need to remember to pull my paper towel wad out of my turbo. I usually use this as a chance to just clean the intake to the turbo a little bit. And then I'm gonna pop this hose back on. Then using my flathead screwdriver, I'm gonna tighten this hose clamp back down. that goes on the turbo, and it's just a, I don't know, 2 turns maybe not even. Make sure that's secure, make sure it looks good, it's seated well. All right, next up, we can take our old Airbox, flip it over. Now I'm gonna make sure these forks are resting on these rubber bumpers that are in there. It's nearly impossible to see. I can see it, but I don't think we can get the camera in there. And now these little nipples will go into these rubber grommets, just like that. They go in a lot easier than they come off. We didn't remove our connectors here for these sensors, so they're good to go. No problems there. I am gonna then put the air hose back on, and once again with my big screwdriver, I'm gonna tighten that back down. These don't have to be crazy tight, don't overdo them, but just nice and snug where it won't come loose. And then over here I have the intake to the air. And this little plastic piece can come loose. It's fine if it does. First time I popped it loose, I was like, oh no, I broke it. But it's fine. It basically seats down here, and then you've just kind of got to finagle it on this other side. There we go. And now that's on. Airbox is good. I always use this as an opportunity just to look over my engine compartment, see if there's anything I missed, which there is. I forgot to reconnect the jump starter on the other side. That's why I like to do that final look over. And this will just click on and go back onto the side of the Airbox. And I'm gonna keep looking around and make sure everything looks good. Make sure I'm not seeing any other problems with my van. You know, this is a good time to discover something that might be going wrong before it really goes wrong. So I'm looking at levels, I'm looking at everything and just trying to see if everything looks like I think it should. But it all looks good, and we have changed our fuel filter. Now, I would normally do this at the same time I change my oil. And I did that just recently. So I wanted to find a nice place to film this video for you guys, so I put off doing oil and fuel filter at the same time. So now we've got it. And I know a lot of you guys have been asking over the years for a fuel filter video. Here it is. I hope this helps you guys. This is really, it seems like kind of a crazy thing because you got to remove the Airbox and all, but really this is so easy to do. It'll save you hundreds of dollars over having a mechanic do it. And I see it as a great opportunity for me just to become more familiar with my van, make sure everything looks like it should. And then if I do have a problem down the road, I've got that little bit more of knowledge and hopefully I can fix it on my own. There it is, guys. Now you know how to change your own fuel filter. This is a super easy thing to do, and it is critical maintenance on your van. This is just as important as doing oil changes. So you want to do this every time you do an oil change. So the first time you get in your van to start it after you've changed a fuel filter, it's going to be a little hard to start, and it's not really hard to start. It is just filling that fuel filter with fuel before it actually fires. So one thing I like to do is I do everything like I'm going to start the engine, except I don't hit the brake. And once you get to that last set of button pushes, you'll hear your fuel pump, if you're listening, go woo, and you'll hear it pulse a couple times, and it is just sending fuel into that brand new unfilled fuel filter. Then when you hit the button, it might take a little longer than normal to start, and it's just pumping that fuel back through the lines, and then it's going to fire like normal. Another maintenance video for you guys. I hope you enjoy it. And until next time, I hope I see you somewhere over the horizon. Take care, guys. We're out of here.